The next section that we're going to be working on picks up in the book on page 43, so this is coming in after the first exercise box 3.1, and I'm going to start off with factors, which are used in data frames. So this starts off pretty simple, and this is just plain starting off with a vector that has strings of open and closed. So for, I might as well follow along with what he's doing. So he has 3 open and 2 closed. So this could be open class type words and closed class type words. So we'll run that. We can look over here and see where it is. And starting with an open parentheses, so this will make it output right to the console. We are going to turn that, instead of to a character vector, into factors. So we're going to take F and make it factor and put that back into F. So it will change what F is. And we can see that it outputs it right to here. Yes, F does have open, 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 closed, closed. And it has, as part of that, 2 levels, closed and open. And we can see that right here as well. Factor with 2 levels, closed and open. The next very simple command follows up on that, and we just want to see, is this vector a factor vector? And run it, and it returns simply true. Yes, it is. This next part I can see becoming very practical for working with corpora, and I will start with removing everything that is there. So we start with a clean environment, and so this is giving me some vectors to create a frame to start with. So using the same ones that he has, part of speech, and the part of speech will include all your typical parts of speech: adjective, adverb, noun, conjunction, and preposition. Run it, put it up there. Next one is, token, frequency. So it's how many of each there are, theoretically. These will be, I'm expecting that they'll go into the vector as integers. They're the same numbers. So this is as though it were coming from a pretty large, fairly large, compared to what we've been working with so far. I'll run that, make sure that it's all typed in correctly. Type, frequency, so that's as though this were how many of each type. That's what I'm guessing. And then another set of integers. And actually, I'm going to look over here to see if I'm referring to it correctly. And it looked like they went in as numbers rather than integers. For our purposes, it doesn't actually matter whether they're numbers or integers, so we won't go into that any further. So where did I leave off? Type, frequency, 103, 35, 18, 37. Run that. And last one, I capitalized it. Another time when I tried this, I had a lowercase c and kept wondering why it didn't run. I didn't keep wondering. It happened once. Okay, same thing that we did before. Open, 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 and closed. So since we have a small set, we can see here that all of them are 5 long. So that we are going to put this into a data frame. And the data frame takes as arguments each of the columns. We'll start off with that. Part of speech, token, frequency, type, frequency, and class. Clearly I typed something. Looks like I left out a U. Okay, there it runs. We want to see what X is. There we have it. So we have it into our columns since they are all the same length. It's like we have 5 entries and they're all in the same row. They're all automatically numbered this way. So one of the options of the way that you can put it into the data frame, and I'll go ahead and do XX and a data frame. One of the optional entries into data frame is, look down to make sure I do this right, is row, actually row.names is coming up next. We'll save that for just a second. We'll continue on with the next step that he's doing, which is looking at the structure of X. And so this is going to tell us that we have 5 ops. I should look that up. I always think of it as objects, like it's each row is an object, but I haven't looked up to see what someone who speaks R would say. But each one has 4 variables, so that's what our columns, so to speak, are. And the $signs let us know how we could access each part of data frame if we wanted to. So it tells us it's factors with 5 levels. 5 levels. Oh, part of speech is 5 levels because there's 5 different ones. So one of the things that the data frame automatically does, or I don't like automatically, as a default, you could change it with an argument here. As a default, it changes or it assigns character strings as levels. So if you didn't want them to be levels, you would have to input a little bit differently. So the numbers, input is numbers, both of the others are factors. So to look at how the $sign works to access just one of the variables, we can go, where are we not going? X, $sign, part of speech. And so what we would expect this to do is to give us just part of speech from this data frame. So we could have multiple data frames. Currently we just have this one. Let's run it. And there we see it. So we see both, since it is a factor type, that this is what is in it, and those are the levels. There just happen to be 5 of them. If we wanted to see the class is interesting because it is levels. It is levels as well, with 2 levels, but just open and closed. There we can see it. And here's where I was starting to get ahead of myself. I'm going to take this one. If we didn't want to have the rows numbered, but we instead wanted to take any one of our, we wouldn't want to take something probably numerical, and we wouldn't want to take something with repeated names. But something like parts of speech you might want as the names of your column, of your rows. So the way that you would do that is the next one that we look at. So we'll just give it another vector. And it doesn't matter where you put row.names. In the book, he shows it at the end, but let's run it this way and see what it looks like. There we can see the names of the rows are now the parts of speech. Just to get rid of it and show that something is changing, we'll remove x.2. The way that he shows it in the book is to put it at the end, and that's the way that it's listed out. If you look up data.frame as well, but it's an optional one, and it shows it at the end. But it does not appear to actually make a difference as long as you label it row.names. We'll run it, and there we have the exact same thing. Let's look at the structure of x.2, and we'll expect this to be a little bit different because now we only have 3 variables. And there we see. There's 5 of them, 5 rows, and these are the ways that we'll access them. So now if we ever wanted to access the parts of speech, we only have them as the row names. And let's close with that.